Welcome to the That Fit Room podcast. Today we are joined with my friend Joey Miuccio. He is a man, a myth, a legend within his own right. Joey, dude, thanks for coming on the podcast, my boy.
Let's go. Thanks for having me, bro.
So Joey's background is in a little bit of everything at this point. Like he ran the Leadville 100 this year. He is a full-time airline pilot. He is what I would call your stereotypical gym bro, but at the same time does a lot of like physique style work. Joey, dude, can you catch us up to speed regarding like who you are as an athlete and how you like to train to just give us a landscape of basically your realms and interests of fitness?
Yeah. So definitely grew up with the bro lifts, the push pull legs, the 5 day split, the Arnold split, whatever, and like stayed away from running and cardio. But now I'm more of like that typical like hybrid athlete that the guys who lift and also run. So yeah, like a couple of years ago, started running a bit more. Did a half marathon, a full marathon. Then I went and did Leadville, and then I just ran my second full marathon. So I just like to do a mix of the bro lifts more like for the physique rather than like strength training, and then just trying to become a faster runner.
Have you noticed since starting to run that the strength has gone down like noticeably, or has it been more subtle? Like, what have you noticed there? Because I think a lot of folks, and you know what's funny is like the term hybrid athlete is so like catchy these days, but in reality,
Yeah,
like we
it's
were
just
all
you're
hybrid
lifting and
athletes as
running.
kids. Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
like it's just so
So
funny
you
like
do
how we've
two
now
things.
how we've branded this thing. Have you noticed
Yeah,
your strength dipping at all since doing all the running?
a little bit. I mean, I was probably the strongest I ever was in college, but it's not like significant at all. I still think I could run a good bit and put on strength, but I just haven't like focused on it as much. But yeah, I'd say my strength has just been kind of plateauing, but I've been trying to build it back up recently, doing more of like a strength training ish program um while running.
Gotcha. And then how many miles would you say you run average right now?
Right now, I mean, since I've been slacking because I just got done with the New York City Marathon, so I'm not like racing or training for any specific race, but I am about to start training for a sub 5 minute mile. So it'll be like less miles, but more like speed work because I just want like a shorter term goal to focus on. Um, but yeah, I typically will run, 5 to 6 days a week, like anywhere from 4 to 6 miles on my shorter runs, and then like on Saturday I'll usually do like a longer run, which will be like 6 to 10 miles.
Sick. And then how many days a week are you lifting right now?
Like 6 days, usually 5 to 6. I mean, it depends what work and if I'm flying, but I usually try to lift as long as I'm not sore. I'll lift. It's just kind of part of the
Gotcha.
daily routine.
So do you, I'm just trying to paint a landscape here. And I think hybrid athletes are fun to talk to because everybody kind of has their own flow and what they've learned. So like with your days, you're obviously running and lifting on the same day. Do you typically find that you perform better with your strength work before or after you're running?
I'll typically strength train prior to the run.
Got it.
So I'll wake up, do a workout, sometimes fasted, sometimes after a meal, and then I like to run like a sunset run. So just
Nice. I
late
love
later in
that.
the day, like give it like at least 4 hours after I lift to go run. But if I'm like people always say you should do whatever first that you're prioritizing. So if you're really trying to get faster, or you're training for a race, you should run first. If you're trying to get stronger, you should lift first, and which makes a lot of sense. So I mean, maybe I'll switch it up if I'm training for a race, but usually I'll just lift first because I enjoy it more.
Gotcha. Question for you regarding the lifting, man. So if you've noticed a small strength dip with your training, or like you're plateauing right now, I want to know kind of what helps you maintain strength the longest when you're ramping up your running volume, because I think that's a topic that is the $1 million question. And it's so individual that I think a lot of people butcher it online because we all try to apply this like big, grandiose formula. But in reality, it's like, dude, you could run 30 miles a week and lose a shit ton of strength. I could run 30 and maybe I don't lose as much strength. But it's because we're different regarding our genetics, our backgrounds, how we're training. So I'm curious, like when you ramp up your volume, dude, is there any flow of strength work that you do that helps you kind of maintain a little bit longer regarding your gains that you've made before like ramping up that running volume?
I'm not super like strategic about it. I would just say like if like during Leadville training, I was running more than I've ever ran in my life, but I didn't lose any weight because I was eating more calories. I was making sure I was hitting my protein goals. And I just made sure I was still lifting pretty heavy. And with that, I was still able to maintain all my strength. And I didn't even lose weight. I was heavier then than I think I am like right now. I was like 190 pounds like the day before Leadville, just because I was eating enough and continually lifting heavy. But I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not a fucking scientist with it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is how I'm gonna maintain my strength. I'm just like, as long as I continue to lift heavy and try to lift heavy, I'm not gonna get weaker, you know.
Totally.
But and I was
Dude,
still lifting
honest,
like 5 6 days a week.
gotcha. I was gonna say honestly, one of the things that I love about just your approach to training is it's not that you don't have a strategy per se, but it's like you're not that person that's over optimized to the point in which like you feel like you can't do this because you just did this. You know, it's like you're
Yeah,
like, yo, I lifted today, I hit legs, but you know what? I'm still gonna run later. Is it gonna be the best run? Probably not, but you know what? I'm still gonna do it, and I'm still gonna
yeah,
get it done. And I appreciate that about you. Um,
yeah.
with the
Thanks.
training though, I am curious if you ever have a day where you just like go fucking hard in the gym and you're lifting a ton, do you ever like subconsciously maybe bias your runs to be a little bit shorter, a little bit easier if you notice like, dude, my legs are cooked? And like, if you do that, or if you don't do that, how do you then navigate like the soreness and fatigue that you might experience with coupling those two things up?
Yeah, well, I mean, typically I'm following a plan. Like if I'm training for a race lately, I'm following a plan so I know what I'm doing on that run, whether it's like a speed run or a long, easy run. So sometimes it's harder. It's like, holy crap, my legs are super sore, but I still know that it is the run on the plan, so this is what I'm doing, regardless. But also, like if it is a really hard run, like a speed run, I'll typically try to do that prior to the lift if I know I'm gonna hit legs later because I don't want to be wrecked. But if I hit legs, I'm a little bit sore and I'm going on like a longer chill zone 2 run, then it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. But yeah, it just depends on what you're prioritizing, like I was saying.
When you got into blending strength and running a little bit more, because I know you started getting a little bit more strategic with it, I think over the last like year and a half, 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, but you've
Yeah.
always been running. Like, what was kind of the framework that you started working with when ramping those two things up? So, for example, like when you started getting more serious with the running, like, were you increasing the frequency of days you ran, the total volume of running you were doing every week? How did you kind of ease in and acclimate yourself to that to be able to handle the lifting and the running without totally killing your body, you know? Because like you've been so consistent now with both that I think a lot of folks ramp up their running, but then they don't check it or do it strategically. And then it's like, boom, they ramp up for 6 weeks, hit a wall, and now they have to pivot and like drop the volume incredibly either on the running or lifting side of things. So how did you kind of ease into that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely like increase that volume slow. I think they say like 10% is the most you want to do weekly. Because I mean, if you just start running too fast or too long, too early, I mean, I used to do that, and then I got injured. Like I used to get really bad shin splints. My knees would hurt. That could have been multiple things, wearing the wrong shoes, whatever. You kind of learn a lot in the process. But I mean, when you follow a plan, it typically does that for you. It increases your mileage slowly, week after week, week after week, and then you have those peak weeks, and then you have your taper. Um, and then all in all, training, lifting will then help mitigate those injuries as well. Staying strong. I think that's what helped me get through Leadville was like continuing the lift because I felt a little bit more like a little stronger in my legs, a little bit more durable than if I would have just stopped lifting and started just running full time. But yeah, I mean, you have to ease into it, or you're gonna start getting wrecked. Like everyone I talk to, like, oh, I get people blowing me out, like, hey, I get shin splints, I get shin splints. Like, you're probably just running too far, too early.
Yeah. It's funny how like people tend to overcomplicate some of these things. Is like, dude, you're just doing too much. Like my knees hurt.
Yeah,
It's like you're check your volume and your loading and what you're actually doing regarding your overall volume every week.
yeah.
I want to talk about Leadville. So for context, everyone, Joey ran the Leadville 100 this year. He absolutely fucking crushed it. And like
Let's go.
Joey had never done an event like this. And that's why it's like so fucking cool, in my opinion. Like just being your friend and like seeing you do that, I was like, no fucking way. This is nuts. So prior to Leadville, what was the longest you had ever run?
A marathon, 26 points. So I just ran my first marathon like a couple months. Well, yeah, yeah. Like I guess like 5 months before Leadville or something like that. And then even in my training, it was like a 22-mile run, what was the longest, which was a little bit worrisome. I was like, I mean, that's 74 miles of unknown gray area. You're like, I don't know. I've never fueled in this situation. I don't know how my body's gonna hold up. Am I gonna get injured? You don't know. You know?
And then also like the elevation too. I think it was crazy that you live in Florida and then you ran the Leadville 100, all this elevation, and you have folks who train at that elevation who got literally wrecked. So it's
Yeah.
just wild. So I want to ask, like with the Leadville 100 going into the race, help me understand your mindset. Were you nervous? Like were you stoked? Like what was happening, man?
A bit of both for sure. I mean, it wasn't even really my idea to train for the Leadville 100. It was like I was working with Koros and they just basically gave me the opportunity and I felt like I couldn't pass it up. And I was like really stoked to have that opportunity. So I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I was excited, but I was also so nervous, dude. Like even driving to Leadville after I left Don's house because we were just like kind of game planning and we went on a little run together and hung out for the day. And like I was just like driving towards Leadville and I was trying to film myself for a YouTube video and I just started crying because I was so nervous. I was freaking out. I was like, I'm gonna fail. Like I'm gonna fail in front of everybody. There's a little more pressure like with us posting on social media and telling everybody like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go do this. And you're training for this long period of time and talking about it. So there's a little bit more pressure built on. And you feel like you're gonna let yourself down and everybody down. Not that it matters. Like I'm not a professional runner and no one expects me to ever win any of these races, but it's still like something that us as guys with some ego were like, we don't want to fail at anything. So I just like felt like if I'm gonna fail, it's gonna be at this right now because this is the hardest thing I've ever done. So I was freaking out, honestly.
I think it makes total sense, man. I mean, even to that point, I think a big pressure is that, like, yeah, you're not a professional runner, but I think a lot of folks do follow you because there's a little more relatability. Like, you're just a guy that likes to lift, run, and you also work a full time job, like most folks who are doing everything. So I
Yeah.
think there's a component there. It's not even like the winning sense. It's like the like I want to show other people that they could do this if they put their head down and stuff. So I am curious. So like going into that race, you're driving there, you start crying because you're nervous. Like, did you do any mindset or mental training for that race? Because I feel like, dude, like on my long runs, even though they're not that long, there are times in my head where I'm like, this fucking sucks. I want to go home. I want to sit down. Like, this is terrible. Like, did you
Yeah.
do anything to kind of help prep yourself for the amount of suck that you were going to be going through with that much of volume and elevation?
I mean, I would say just training in Florida in general in the middle of the summer, because I mean, this race is August. It was August 19th or something. So or 15th, whatever. So I was running through the heat of Florida every day, like at like 90 to 100. So that was just tough in general, like long runs. Like one time I had to call an Uber. Like I was supposed to go for a 30-mile run because I forgot one of my 8-mile runs. So I was going to try to do the 22 and an 8 together, and it was so brutal. I couldn't hydrate. I went into full body cramps. So like I was going through the suck pretty much every day, like just trying to train in Florida. And then also, ice bath, sauna, just like those little things that are kind of mental grit builders every day. But
Totally.
I mean, it's pretty hard to match the energy of the race day of the 100. Like you can't kill yourself that much because then you just won't be ready on race day and you won't be healthy. But yeah, I think those little things add up.
Do you also think, and I know your answer to this, the team that you had helping you and pacing you, like how much did they help out in the sense of like keeping you a little bit more sane? Because I feel like you probably had moments, I would guess, where you're like, guys, I want to go home. Like this sucks. I'm done. Like having that support system. And so for folks who don't know, like when you run a race like this, like you have pacers and folks to help you out throughout the way. How much did they play a part in kind of like helping you out with the progress of the race, but then also just the success of the completion of it?
Yeah, big time. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there was a few guys out there that were running without a team. I don't know how you do that because I mean you want to show up to your aid station, sit down in a chair, and I mean they're massaging you, they're refilling your water bottles. I mean your whole body's wrecked. You don't want to have to do anything. It's just like let me sit down, hang out for a little bit, talk to you guys, get some good energy, and then I'll be back into the woods for a couple hours. So, I mean, the vibes are really good. The team was awesome. It was like no one really knew what we were doing other than Brock. Like Brock has ran ultra before, but then it was just like a group of misfits that didn't know what was going on. But it was awesome because it felt like we had little to no pressure because it was just like a group of freaking muscle heads like in the mountains trying to do this whole ultra thing. And but it was awesome. Like yeah, the biggest thing is like the vibes. Like you got to
Yeah.
keep it positive. I knew none of them were gonna let me quit, even if I wanted to. And so it was good. And then you pick up pacers at mile 62, and they can run with you and stuff. So that definitely helps out just to keep your keep your mind on the prize.
I'm almost wondering if kind of that ignorance is bliss mindset there almost played into your favor, because it's like you can't be afraid of what you really don't know. And if you have
Yeah.
folks who don't really know it either, like they're just like, yeah, we're just going to do it and figure it out as we go. Like, I'm curious how much that played in. Do you have any point during the race of span of mileage where you had to go to a dark place to kind of pull yourself out of? Like, is there anything that stands out to you basically in that race where you hit that point of like maybe like depth in your mindset that you've never even hit before with a physical endeavor?
Yeah. Oh, dude, for sure. A couple times I was like, I am so wrecked right now. I mean, even going down, like once I got to the top of Hopes Pass, it was probably like mile 45 or something, and then you head down into mile 50. I started getting some blisters on my feet, and those started getting pretty rough. But then it's like you start to think you're like, okay, it's a blister on my foot, but it hurts really bad. But then you're like, well, I definitely can't quit on this blister. But then you get to the point where it gets pretty hard to eat. You start getting really, really low on energy. The sun starts going down. So then at mile 50, I really thought about quitting, honestly. And I was seeing a lot of people quitting at mile 50. Some of my buddies are not quitting. Some guys were getting rhabdo. Some guys were injured. And it was like, oh, well, I could stop right now. Then I could just go home. It'd be great. But then I was like, screw it. And then I refueled. I felt a lot better. And then I got back up. And then honestly, in the last like 6 miles, I started getting really, really dizzy. And at this point, I knew I wasn't going to quit, but I thought maybe I was going to pass out, which was like on my mind because the electrolyte imbalance was making me like swell up and I had a really bad headache and I kept having to like shut my eyes and reopen them, and I felt like I was just gonna fall over. But I never wanted to. I never wanted to quit. Like I never really thought I was gonna like hang it up. I thought I was gonna at least try to make it to the next aid station. If I didn't make it there on the cutoff time, then that would be my fate. But yeah, I felt like I'm gonna do it because
Were there?
also
Oh, sorry.
also I knew if I was gonna quit, then I'd want to freaking do it again. And I'd have to do it again for my own mental and ego. I'd be like, oh no, like you can't be a quitter. Like you have to do. And I was like, I don't ever want to fucking do this race ever again. So I'm gonna finish this shit this time. I'm never doing it again. So that was a big motivator as well, honestly.
I honestly kind of fucking love that. Like most people are like, I can't wait to do the next one, and you're just like, dude, that was shitty, but I got done. I ran it, and you finished under 30 hours, right?
Yeah, yeah, barely.
And so you
29
got the
hours and
buck.
like 30, 32 minutes or something.
That's so sick. But you got the buckle or whatever it is, the right, the
Yeah.
Leadville. So sick. Yeah, no, it's just so funny that you're like, I showed up to this thing. I didn't know what I was doing. My team didn't know what I was doing. We did it under 30 hours. I'm never doing this shit again.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
It's like,
good,
well, I'm gonna go do a sub 25. No, I don't give a shit. I was like,
dude. So
I
good.
finished it. I could forever say I finished it. Now I'll just like do some shorter, faster races and just do new. I don't want to do. I don't want to be like amazing at one thing. I just want to try everything. I want to go do the Ironman thing. I eventually want to do a sub 3 marathon. I just want to like try different things in the fitness space and just kind of enjoy everything rather than kind of zoning too much in on one thing.
Dude, I love that. And I think so many folks could benefit with that type of mindset. And it's funny, like, and this is not to like make it a me thing, but like over the last probably year and a half, 2 years, I've kind of had that realization too, where it's like, I don't care if I have the strongest squat. Like, I want to play with all these different verticals. And I feel like it just takes so much pressure off your training and it makes it just more enjoyable. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, dude, like after the Leadville 100, you just ran the New York City Marathon. Have you noticed anything, whether that be with your physical performance or your mindset, that has carried over from the Leadville 100 to maybe these shorter races that you plan to tackle now? Like, do you have more mental toughness, more ability to pace, for example? Do you have a better context of feeling out your body when you're hitting different paces in these shorter runs? Like, do you have any carryover there?
Yeah, for sure. I think that mental grit will carry over for the rest of my life, hopefully, because you can just pull from that experience. Be like, oh, well, this sucks right now, but that really sucked, and I did that, so it's like, okay, like this isn't too bad. But I mean, they're all different. Like, I mean, I'm sure like me trying to go run a sub 3 is going to be really, really hard, just as hard probably, but it's different. It's a shorter period of time. It's a different type of suck. But yeah, I definitely would say that I pull from that now a lot, and just anything that was hard in my life.
I dig that. That's sick. And with the sub 5 goal, when are you planning on tackling that? Because if I'm not mistaken, was it like 5:11 you ran last when you gunned for a sub 5?
508, 508. So it was
5:08.
close. It was pretty close, and it was like, but that was like over a year ago for sure, probably like a year and a half ago or something now. So I haven't been. I've just been running so slow. Not that like I don't run fast every once in a while. I try to like hold some paces, but like even the marathon is like a fast pace for me would be like a 7 minute mile, you know, or barely under seven. So I just want to, and I feel like I keep picking these goals that are so far away. Not that like 12 weeks is far away, but like the Leadville was like a long training event. I know if I go for sub 3, it's going to be like a 16-week plan. I just want to do like something short and quick, show that experience and how I did it, and then move back into like maybe an Ironman or try for a sub 3 or something. I feel like I just need something like on the near horizon.
Yeah, that's not so grandiose like the Leadville.
Yeah,
So I want to transition, dude. So we've talked about kind of the events you've tackled this year, but I think what folks don't often understand with your persona on person like social media and whatnot. I mean, obviously now more because you're steering into it, but like you have a full-time job as well. Like you are not
yeah,
just an athlete. You're not just a runner. You're not just a guy that goes to the gym to lift. You are a full-time airline pilot. And so you are physically traveling with weird hours and you're still able to train. So I want to like talk just generally about being a pilot because I think that's just a really cool career. And I feel like a lot of folks don't have that career. But I also want to talk about how you balance the training, the nutrition while traveling so much and having a schedule that's a lot more variable than your typical 9 to 5 on a Monday through Friday. So
yeah,
with being an airline pilot, dude, like what got you interested in that? Because I'm scared as fuck flying. And that's something I would never do. But like,
yeah.
what got you into wanting to be a pilot, dude?
So my buddy's dad, my buddy Carrie, we used to go on surf trips all the time. His dad was an American airline captain, and we used to go on surf trips to Costa Rica, and like he would like give me his buddy passes. He had a lot of time off. He made good money. Lived in this house on the beach. I was like, dude, this guy lives a life. Because I mean, you wake up or you grow up looking at your parents, other people's parents, and you kind of like study it, and you're like, okay, what is the life that I want, and what do they do for work? And his seemed to be like the best schedule, the best pay, that I was like, okay, I'm interested. But there is like that aura about it. Like you think pilots are really good at math and all this stuff. I was like, oh, I'm not good at math, so I can't do this. And I know it was super expensive, and I didn't have a bunch of money growing up to where I'd be able to pay for flight school. So I pushed it off for a while. It wasn't something that I jumped into at a very young age. I went and got a business degree. And then I decided, hey, screw it. I don't want to do any of these other jobs. I want to try this out. And once I tried it, I honestly fell in love with it, like just during training, because it's very hands-on. It's very practical. You read something in the book, and then you go fly. And there's nothing cooler than flying an airplane. Like I genuinely fell in love with like wanting to progress at taking off and landing and doing maneuvers. So yeah, I fell in
That's
love with
sick.
flying.
How long did it take? Because I'm just curious, like, how long does it take to go through like pilot school, I guess, to get to like being a major airline pilot? I don't know context there. So like, how long do you have to be like a pilot in training before you can even apply for these jobs? And then like, what does that landscape look like? Do you have a runway there that you have to go through maybe their training program before you can start flying commercially?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I mean, everyone can go at their own pace. There's like a bunch of different ways that you can kind of go about it, but I just went at my own pace. I went and flew and did my lessons at whatever rate that I wanted to do, and then you can get your cert. Like once you hit a certain hour requirement and your instructor thinks you're ready, then he can send you off to go take a certain test. So you get your private pilot license, then you get your instrument rating, which means you can fly in the clouds. Then you get your commercial license, which means you can start getting paid to fly. But usually it's like very small airplane situations. Then I became a flight instructor. So then I taught people how to fly until I got my 1,500 hours. And then I went to the airlines and I flew for a regional airline. And then you can go to the major airlines usually after that. So it's kind of a process. But I mean, that whole process, like me training, was like 2 years, which, like I said, you could do it way faster than that if you wanted to. And then I was a flight instructor for another year. And then I went to the airline. So it was like a 3 year process. And then now it's been like, and then I've been in the airlines for like 2 years. So it's like I've been flying for like a total of 5 years. But nowadays the airlines are hurting for pilots. So you could probably get to an Airbus in 2 years, which is awesome.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think airlines are hurting for pilots at the moment?
I don't know. I mean, I think COVID, a lot of people took the early retirement. And then also, we are hitting a bit of a wave where these older guys are starting to retire because there is a forced retirement age of 65 now. And they're thinking about maybe putting it to 67. But yeah, it just comes in waves. Like, and it depends. If another, tragic event happens like COVID or anything that affects travel, hiring halts for years, and it becomes a whole different story, and no one's getting hired, and pilots are getting laid off. It's kind of like it can be risky at times, but yeah, right now times are just good. I think it's just a mixture of a few things.
That makes sense. I feel like yeah, if they weren't hiring actively for a year and a half, 2 years, like how many folks would have applied and become pilots, but just were like, yeah, fuck this, I'm gonna go do something else. Or like how many
Yeah,
people like got tired of being laid off and they went and changed career paths. I'm sure that's
yeah.
a lot of it. And
Oh
I
yeah.
wish we would do the forced retirement for people in government. To be honest,
Oh
like
dude.
what the fuck? Like why couldn't they be like 90 years old, but the pilots
Yeah,
can't fly after 65? The fuck?
yeah. If you
We're not
can't
gonna
ride a
dive down
bike,
that rabbit. Yeah.
if you can't ride a bike without falling, I think.
Let's not dive down that rabbit hole before we get ourselves canceled saying such
Yeah,
dumb
we're gonna get
shit.
canceled. We're gonna get canceled.
um, well, dude, so I want to talk. So you're flying. How many days a week are you flying? Like, how many days a week are you flying? Like, does it work on like a weekly basis? Is it a monthly basis? Do you have to hit a volume of flights? Is it hours? How the fuck does that work?
Yeah, so I personally love the on-call schedule because I just roll the dice. I hope they don't call me. Like today, like I'm on call right now, and I was on call. Yeah, yeah. Today's my first day on call, and like they don't call me, sweet, I'm good. If they don't call me all month, I'm good. I'm gonna get paid regardless, which is awesome. Uh, but you can also do a normal schedule where you'll get more guaranteed days off, but on those days that you're on, you're definitely flying. So to answer your question, last month, since we're into December, I flew 8 days. The previous month, I flew 3 days. So that was like a really good month. The 3 days a month, I was like, amazing, because it
I
gives me a
bet.
lot of opportunity to just hang out, train, make content, be able to focus more on like the social media side of things. But then if I do fly a little bit more, then I like that job as well. And now I started creating content around that. So that's also a little bit more, being able to kind of mix that in as well. Just do like more pilot day in the life vids. So
Dude,
I
I
get a
love
lot of
that.
time off, is what I'm trying to say. If you want, or if you want to fly more, you can. You could pick up trips on your days off. So it's a very flexible schedule compared to other careers.
Got it. And then if you actively choose to fly more, I'm assuming you make more, right?
Yeah, yeah. So as long as so I get a guaranteed pay of 75 hours a month. So if I fly over that, like if they use me every day, I'll probably fly over 75 hours a month. And then anything over that, obviously you make however many hours. And then if you hit over 82 hours, then you get 125% of pay. So you can like manipulate your schedule. But if they build you a schedule, they will build you a schedule just for 75 hours a month. So it's a typical like base salary.
I dig it. So when you're on the road and you're flying, so on like last month you flew 8 days.
Yeah.
How do you balance the training and the flying? Because I'm guessing for those days, you're probably doing one or two flights, if I had to guess, which is probably equivalent to like, I don't know, anywhere from like 4 to 8, maybe more hours. How do
Yeah.
you balance the training and stuff and like keep the wheels on? Do you, okay, I got to fly today, go before you go to work? Is it after work? Like, how do you balance that? And like, also when you're in hotel gyms and you don't have the same equipment, do you have like a plan for more minimalist style workouts? Just get in what you can and not stress it too much. Like, what's your game plan there, dude?
Yeah, pretty much wing it because you like you don't know exactly. I mean, you could tell like, okay, I'll probably work out at night on this trip because it's a bunch of early starts and I'll have some time before bed. Like my last trip was like every morning we were up at 4 a.m. or earlier, like 3:30, 4 for a 4:30 van, and have to be at the airport at 5 o'clock and a departure at 6 o'clock. So super early start. So I was always lifting later in the day, but I was in Phoenix for 2 nights at the shittiest hotel gym you could ever see in your life. I mean, no, I mean there was dumbbells up to 50, which was nice, but like no mirrors, no real dumbbell rack, no cable stack, no nothing. But I still just was like, okay, and I only had like 11-hour layover, so it was super short on time. So I was just like, I did like a 15-minute as many rounds as possible with a couple different things on both those nights. And then the next layover, I was in Cleveland, which I went and saw Pete from Sisu, and we just got like a leg and back day in his garage gym and hit the sauna and stuff. So sometimes I have more time to where if I have friends in town, I can go visit them and like experience like a good lift slash recovery session. But sometimes I just squeeze it in, and you just have to be very adaptive because you don't know what you're gonna have and you don't know how much time you're gonna have. So just kind of go with the flow.
Were there ever points where that would stress you out? Because I think a lot of folks, when they travel, and I can sometimes even do this, even though I know and have the foresight that, like, I know my schedule's going to be fucked. I know I'm not going to have my normal equipment. Get stressed about basically not having that normal flow. Like, when you go into a gym like that in Phoenix that doesn't have the stuff, how do you kind of mentally shift gears? Because I'm sure there's like a feeling of like, oh my God, like, are you serious? Like, what do you then, like, where do you go basically mentally to get in a good workout still? Because I think a lot of us, when we travel, it's not always the most comfortable to travel on the road. We might be more tired. We might not have our gear. So I don't know. I would love some tips from you who does it pretty often, to kind of help folks who might be in a similar boat with travel navigate that a little bit more efficiently and not stress too much. So how do you kind of handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would stress more if I just didn't get anything done. So as long as you get in a workout, you can usually at least maintain. Like maybe I'm not gaining strength or gaining too much muscle on these trips where I'm only lifting 50-pound dumbbells, but at least I'm getting a workout and getting a pump and getting some blood flow, you know, getting the heart rate up. So if I had like a strict goal of getting really strong with my deadlift or squat, I'd probably be pretty stressed out because I never have a squat rack at any of these hotel gyms, and sometimes it's hard to get to a normal gym. But yeah, I mean, I just haven't had that like a goal that really stresses me out in terms of lifting. And then that's what's good about running and why I've kind of grown to love running is I could do that anywhere. I can hit a treadmill workout or I can run around with that whatever city I'm at. Um, but I think as long as you get in something, you're better off than just like taking it off because you're traveling.
I dig that. And with the mindset of motivation around traveling on the road, I want to pick your brain. On days when you get done flying and you're like, fuck, I don't feel like doing shit, but I do want to do a workout, how do you get yourself motivated to go? Because I find that really interesting. Everybody kind of has their means of doing this. And so I just want to like hear your take. Like when you don't want to train after a day of flying and traveling, how do you get yourself to the gym? Do you think like, hey, I'm just going to go in and do at least 15 minutes of work and then I'm out. If it sucks, I'm out. But if it's better and I could usually make it work, and most times we'll go into like 15 minutes, that's all I'm gonna do. But then we're like, damn, this is actually great. I'm gonna keep going. Like,
Yeah.
do you have any tips and tools like that that you can share with folks?
Man, it's just like I think once you make it part of your day, it's just like I don't feel like I need to be motivated anymore because it's just like it's on the agenda. Like I
Yeah.
know I'm hitting the gym. I know I'm going for a run. I do pull motivation from things and like even this weekend being up in being up in California and watching people run the marathon. I'm like, oh, now I'm motivated. Like now I want to be a faster runner. I want to be a sub 3 marathoner. And like I do pull motivation, but I think it's important just to make it a part of your day and just don't fuck around. It's
Yeah.
like that's it. Just do it. Just do it every day. And it's just like, and then it becomes like brushing your teeth. Like you don't need motivation to brush your teeth, but if you don't
Yeah.
brush your teeth are gonna be fucked. So you
It's
do it.
true.
You do
It's
it. But
true.
it's like, so you just do it. I don't know. I don't know. That's my mindset on that.
No, I dig that. I think that's great actually. And honestly, I could take a piece of that and implement it because there are days when I push training instead of just doing it, and it's because I could be a little bit lax with myself, but you make a really great point. It's like cold showers for me. Like I started them ironically months ago, and now they've just become part of my morning, and I do them. Even if I fucking don't want to do it or it's cold or in my room, I'm like, doesn't matter. I'm just gonna hop in. So I feel like that's a really good way to approach that. And I almost feel like that's a shifting of gears of mindset, right? Where it's not like feeling like you need to have motivation to go to the gym. It's just like this is what I do. Like this is just part of it. So I almost feel
Yeah.
like you kind of hit on something that I've never really thought about, at least in the last few months, with training when I don't feel like training.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so
you fucking train like every day. I mean,
I
you're
don't
always in
train
the
every
gym.
day. I don't train every day.
How often do you train?
It seems like I train every day, but I don't train every day. I'm
Yeah.
right now lifting 4, sometimes 5 days a week, and then
Okay.
running 2 to 4 times a week, give or take. And like
Nice.
that's been actually a little bit down because of all the travel and stuff. I just moved to Airbnbs. And for me personally, it's tough to go to the gym with a ton of intent and effort when I'm moving a ton because I think subconsciously that stresses me out a lot more than I want to let on and let people believe, or like at least myself believe. So I just am run down for moving and shit. I'm like, dude, I just physically don't have it in me to do a full day of work on my computer and then go to the gym and do all this moving stuff. But,
What do you think? What
but
do you think is more productive? What do you think is more productive for like putting on muscle? Like how many days a week? Like you kind of know more studies than I would know in terms of like 4 days a week, 6 days a week, fucking 7 days a week. I don't know. Like I just try to work out as much as I can, but I feel like maybe 4 days a week I'd be better off. I don't know.
Well, so I think it really depends on the volume and intensity and the landscape of the full week of training. Like if you want to go 6 days a week, like I have clients, for example, that love training 6 days a week. Do I think that's the most optimal for most folks, especially more Gen Pop folks who aren't necessarily so specific? No. But if it makes them feel good and productive and it's part of their routine, the way I kind of handle that is keeping volume a little bit lower on each day and kind of pulling our shots with intensity. So, for example, as opposed to like going to failure on every exercise 6 days a week, doing like 2 or 3 days where it's ramped up higher, and then 2 or 3 days where it's a bit more pump focused, a bit more conditioning, circuit style focus work.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like that minimum effective dose talk or like how much you really need to make progress, for me personally, and speaking anecdotally from both my experiences and with my clients, I find like 4 days is usually the sweet spot regarding strength. If you really want to push that strength up higher, getting 4 good days where you are going a little bit more intense in the spectrum of strength does really well. And then from like a conditioning and hypertrophy standpoint, generally like 5 to 6 days can be really solid. And then if you keep like 3 days strong, like strength focus, but then 3 days like more pump focus with the blend, that's
Yeah.
really, I think, where most folks respond really well. But it's just funny, man, because I also feel like you got to consider the landscape of one's life. So, like right now,
Yeah.
my
True.
life is stressful as shit. And like, I don't have as much energy as I normally would to train. So for me, 3 to 4 days a week has been awesome to make gains with because I'm able to put all of my eggs in these baskets. And if I was going 6 days a week, I would be so run down that I would end up probably hindering myself long term regarding like a 6 to 8 week block. Whereas if I'm going 3 to 4 days, I can keep that higher and ride that high a little bit longer. So
Yeah.
there's
A
so
lot
many
of
layers there,
factors.
so many layers there. But I do
Yeah.
feel like if you at least get in 3 to 4 days a week of like good workouts, and even if you do less, like 2 to 3 days, I think they've seen like really productive results on like full body style training for like 2 or 3 days a week. Is that going to be the most optimal long term? No, but that can be enough to honestly move that needle, especially for beginner intermediates at that type of volume and frequency, which is really cool and like good to keep in mind when you are feeling stress of like, oh, I can't go 5 days a week this week. fucking do three, hit full body,
Yeah.
push sets to failure, keep your effort high. And for most folks who just want to get in shape and hold that shape, that's usually enough.
Yeah.
With your stuff, dude, like 6 days a week, do you find that you respond well to that volume, or is that one of those things where it's like you just like going, so you just go 6 days a week and then you play as you go? Maybe not every day is like balls to the wall, but there are days where it's like, this is going to be more of like a conditioning or pump focused day. Like, how do you lay out your 6 days a week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm following a plan at the moment, but yeah, like you were saying, I switch it up. Like not every day I'm pushing super heavy, and not every day I'm just doing reps and just getting the pump in. So I like to do a bit of both. On some days, I am trying to do like strength work. Like today, I was doing like a 4x4 on bench with like pause reps. So like a little bit more like strength work, and then a little bit of pump work at the end. But yeah, I think it is just become part of the daily routine. So I'm not like, oh, this is the most optimal. I'm just like, I'm not sore. My chest isn't sore, and my arms aren't sore. I'm hitting chest and arms. Like whatever. If I'm sore, I don't feel like hitting the gym because I feel like it'll be like not productive. Then I'll take that day off and just do like a light run or just kind of hit the sauna and stretch and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of go with the flow.
Gotcha. And then going with the flow, I'm curious, like, what do you do on a weekly basis regarding your recovery? Because you train with such a high volume in the gym and with running. What have you learned that like works really well for your recovery? Whether it be like external things like massage or like sauna or ice or like supplements that you like that help a little bit, maybe in the context of keeping you hydrated. What do you do right now that kind of keeps you feeling good regarding the landscape of your recovery?
Yeah. So I mean, like a broken record, probably with everybody that talks about recovery. But I mean, sleep is huge. I mean, I think that's like absolutely massive. Just like for me, I could feel it. Like if I don't get like 6 to 8 hours of sleep, I feel a little bit more wrecked. Protein, I always try to get 180 to 220 grams of protein every day. Not that I'm like counting very strictly every day, but I typically know what I'm eating. Then sauna, I love hitting the sauna every day, either after my workout, after a lift, or after a run. And then I have been loving the ice bath like first thing in the morning. I try to do that. Sometimes I'm a little sissy and I don't get in it in the mornings, but I like the ice bath. And then if you get a massage, great. But massages are pretty expensive. But if you have a nice girlfriend that'll massage you every once in a while, it's like all right. That definitely adds to the
Or
recovery.
boyfriend.
Or boyfriend,
uh,
yeah, whatever.
or boyfriend.
Whatever
With
floats
the
your boat.
ice, dude, with the ice stuff, I'm curious. How long do you stay in your ice bath? And like, if you're not feeling it for a day, do you cut that time down? I'm curious because I'm very much like hit or miss on ice. Like I do it often, but there are days
Yeah,
when I just don't know why, but my body's just like, don't do long, don't do long. But then some days I'm like, yeah, let's fucking relax. Do you have days
yeah.
like that where you vary naturally, or like, do you try to stay with a consistent time? How do you lay that out?
3 minutes. I'll always do 3 minutes. Like if I'm getting in, I'm doing 3 minutes. I don't care. It's gonna suck. It's gonna like whatever. But like with that said, when I was in Cleveland and we had to break through the ice and there was snow on the ground, I did 2 minutes because I was like I'm a sissy. But like here in Florida with my plunge on my balcony, like if I'm gonna get into it, it's like 41 degrees. I know I'm gonna do 3 minutes, and I try to do it first thing in the morning. I was doing it after my runs, but I just don't want to do it after I train anymore. Just after seeing those studies, I don't. It's not gonna make a huge difference, but I just don't even want to mess with it at all. Even if it's a run where I'm not typically trying to put on muscle, but I do want to put some muscle on my legs, so I'm like, I don't even want to do this ice after I run.
And for
So
for context, folks, and I correct me if I'm wrong, the studies and research you're talking about is how cold exposure can blunt hypertrophy response post workout. So essentially, like when
yeah,
you are vasodilated post workout, cold exposure can, in theory, sometimes blunt that positive response of getting more blood flow throughout the body, through more nutrients, et cetera, to create that nice hypertrophy response of both a myofibular and oh my god, I can't even think of the word. Oh my gosh, basically the two elements of hypertrophy.
yeah, yeah. That's way more in depth than that I know. So I was just like, is it gonna affect my gains? Basically, like, will I be able
Yeah.
to put muscle on? After. They say what? Wait, 4 hours. You probably read this study or know a bit more about it,
Something around there, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to
or
look back
something.
at
Wait
it
at
to be
least
honest.
four. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't. Basically, what I heard, and a lot of people were talking about forever, was like, don't do ice right after a lifting session where you're trying to do hypertrophy work to put on muscle mass. And so I just try to do it first thing in the morning, and then that's it. And then I'll do the sauna after a lift. When do you like to do sauna? Do you do sauna every day, or try to?
I've been trying to do like 3 to 4 days a week. And you know what's funny? I've been trying to figure out a flow that works best because the issue for me is that if I'm at the gym that has the sauna, I will like typically buddy them up and just go right after.
Yeah,
But I'm noticing more and more that when I go to sauna and ice right after my workout, I end up just fucking feeling like garbage after it all. And not in the sense that like I don't feel like it was productive, but more so in the sense that like the fatigue from my workout and then the stress response of the cold and heat, I think it's just a lot on my body.
yeah,
So to your point, like I've been lazy with it and I've been going back to back. But generally speaking, like what I in a perfect world, what I do is train midday and then do contrast in the afternoon. Like if I maybe I go
yeah,
over to Eric Hinman's, for example, at like 5 p.m. and I train at like 11 or 12, that is usually when I feel the best post contrast. Like the
yeah,
back to back to your point and to like most research point, like I just think it's hard on the body regarding stress responses. And it's
yeah.
hard to like be productive
I
after.
wouldn't want to. Yeah, I think it's a huge. I think it is a lot of stress, especially if you're doing the contrast straight after your lift. For me, just doing the sauna after the lift is like chill. It's like a relaxing moment. It's kind of like a time where I can like digest my protein shake as well. Like I'll lift, slam my protein shake, sit in the sauna for 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes, then hop out, hit the shower, and then I'm ready to eat again. So it's kind of like a smooth like process of like digesting the protein shake, getting a little bit more of a sweat, and then being ready to eat after, and then just hammering that cold plunge early in the morning, or like you're saying, wait later, then hit the contrast. Because contrast does it makes me exhausted, honestly. If I sauna ice, I feel like your body's like, holy crap. I mean, it's a lot for your body to deal with, and it makes me really tired.
Well, I think people neglect that like you are eliciting stress responses when you are going into sauna and ice, and like the body will generally fatigue after that, and to very degrees, obviously. And I don't want to talk out of place here, but I think most folks are like, yeah, it's going to be the super relaxing thing, but in reality, when you're doing it with strategy for the prescribed times that are supposed to be ideal for getting a positive attribute and benefit from it, like it's hard, man. It's tough on the body, and that's why I think folks often go balls deep too fast with like sauna ice work. And it's like, dude, it's like with training, you got to kind of ease yourself in. You can't just
Yeah,
go like right away 3 minutes ice, 3 sessions through every single day. Like it's probably a good idea to kind of adapt slowly, give your body some gradual exposure. But I feel like with some of this stuff, it's not necessarily new, obviously, but I think mainstream consumption of folks doing more contrast, it is relatively new. And so it's been cool seeing like all these different athletes, lifters, and whatnot with the data points and how they respond to it. Like Eric, for example, our friend Eric Hinman, he fucking sauna and ices every day and does it
every
for
day.
super long. But people, I
Savage.
think, neglect the fact that he does it every day. So he's at a point now where he's so used to it that I think if you don't have that familiarity and you go to try to like match him on his level, like it's just tough. And like there are multiple days when I'm like, hey, dude, I'm done after this round, and he'll keep going. But it's like
Yeah,
I don't do it every day. So like the acclimation isn't necessarily there. So if you are listening and you do contrast, I would just say like be conscious of how much you're doing and at what rate you're doing it. And also what's helped me is I take notes now in my phone actually and like keep little notes on like how I'm feeling after certain amounts of time. And it's kind of
yeah,
helped me shape like what my best feeling results are regarding sauna and ice. Like for me, for example, Joey, 8 to 10 minutes in the sauna and then like a minute and a half, 2 minutes in cold, that's like where I find that I'm like peak. If I do 2 or 3 times through that, I can usually fucking function after and not be a garbage human of so fatigued. But if I do longer than that, like I find that I'm just so run down. And I think a lot of that has to do with my neural fatigue and like my inability to sleep restful nights. But
yeah,
that's kind of what I've learned over the last few months. And like I didn't start taking notes until I just kept feeling wrecked after the sun. I'm like, I think I'm doing too much.
yeah. Yeah, I think too, like people, if you jump straight into the ice, I mean, the sauna's like a little bit more enjoyable, but some people who go in the ice, it's like if you just get forced right away, you're like, I got to do 3 minutes or 4 minutes or however long these people are trying to tell you to get in there at like 40 degrees right away, you're going to never want to get back in that thing ever again. So if you go in for 30
100%.
seconds, now next time you're like, oh, I could do 40 seconds. Like 30 seconds wasn't bad. Like just like running, like increase the mileage slowly, increase the lifting. Start with 3 days a week. Then you can eventually get to 6 days a week. Like if you just jump straight into it, it could be too much and then you won't be able to be consistent.
I dig that. Before we wrap up, dude, I have a couple more questions for you. This is going to be a little bit more rapid fire esque in nature.
Let's do it.
Number one, because we're closing out 2023, I want to know what has been like your biggest feat of physicality this year? Like, what have you been most proud of from a physical performance output perspective?
Leadville for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I teed you up on that one. I like if this motherfucker doesn't say Leadville, like I don't know what he's doing physically.
Yeah,
So I
Leadville.
guess mentally and life wise, what have you been most proud of? Like, what have you accomplished? Whether that be like a mental thing or hurdle that you've worked through, business thing. Like, what has been the most meaningful moment thus far outside of just lifting, fitness, performance, and whatnot?
I say like moving out by myself for the first time, just like moving to a new city with not too many friends, meeting new people, just putting myself out there and just for a change for the better. I think like I mean it's later in life, like I'm about to be 29, but I lived with my parents in a small beach town for a long period of time. You can get really comfortable, and I think that is like that's hard for a lot of people. And for me, it was a big change, but it helps you grow and do a better person for sure.
I love that. I think that's a great note to end on for today. Well, dude, if folks want to follow you, and do note, everybody, as always, I'm dropping all of Joey's info down in the show notes. Where can folks find you? Where can we interact with your content and who you are?
Yeah, Joey Miuccio, JoeyMiuccio on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube now. Yeah, same handle on everything.
Yeah, dude's on YouTube and he's doubled my subscriber count in half the time, and he hasn't even
Let's
rolled out
go.
really any long form content. He's done like one or two videos. So I'm like,
Hey,
fucking
I got my
goddamn.
third video. I got my third video going out today.
It's
Or
so good,
second.
man.
Yeah,
I
third.
love it. I love that you're on YouTube. I think it adds such. I feel like your personality is so damn good, and I feel like if anybody just follows you on social media, they don't really get a full landscape of how good of a human you are. Like I think some
Thanks,
folks
dude.
think like fitness influencers, quote unquote, or like folks who like have that kind of persona. There's just not much to them, or like they're just not good energy. But like, dude, I am so stoked you're doing long form because I feel like it just adds so many layers of being able to connect with you as a person, understand who you are, what you're about. So it's been really cool fucking seeing your growth over the
Thanks,
last year
dude.
from a friend's point of view. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. I sincerely appreciate your time as always.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me on, bro.